A very good afternoon, everyone. I, Kanishka Kodke, Vice Chairperson at RIT ACM, along with Pranay Surya Rao, Management Chief at RIT ACM, will be your host for today's session. Security used to be an inconvenience sometimes, but now it's a necessity all the time. ACM, in collaboration with CSI, is organizing event for cybersecurity on the occasion of Cybersecurity Week. Cybersecurity Awareness Week on the occasion of Founders Day celebrations. Cybersecurity is the practice of protecting critical systems and sensitive information from digital attacks. With an increasing number of users, devices, and programs in the modern enterprise, combined with the increasing deluge of data, much of which is sensitive or confidential, the importance of cybersecurity continues to grow. Management is efficient in climbing the ladder of success. Leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. It is a great honor for me to welcome Dr. Mukesh Patil sir, the principal of RAIT, who is instrumental in our journey all the times by being a guiding light for all of us and has always encouraged students to give their best. We all look up to him as he inspires us to be a better version of ourselves. Now, I would invite Dr. Mukesh Patil sir to say a few words of wisdom before we begin with our session. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon to all of you. And I would like to congratulate RIT SCM and CSI RIT for taking the initiative to start to have the uh, sessions on cybersecurity, because this is the month celebrated by Government of India and AICT as a cybersecurity awareness. And 22nd is a foundation day for RIT. So I just talk this with Dr. Vanita and Dr. Gautam Borkar, whether can we have some sessions on cybersecurity awareness, and they happily accepted the invitation, and it is supported by CSI RIT and RIT ACM. So congratulations to both the technical societies for taking the initiative. Nowadays, due to this pandemic situation, most of the people are using the digital transactions, and lot of issues are raised during this period. And the cyber security has become the important issue in this era, or during this pandemic situation. And everybody want to know what is cyber security, what are the cyber threats, and how to prevent it. So this week, awareness week, will surely help to the students and to the listeners or attendees about what are the cyber security threats, and what are the challenges, and how it can be tackled. And it will surely help to protect their digital transaction. And the researchers who are working in this domain will get a new direction to give a thought as how to protect the cyber security threats, and what are the challenges, and they will get a new directions to work in this domain. And there are a lot of opportunities are there, and this has become a hot cake for the researchers and for the students. And from the job perspective also, this is very uh, demanding domain, where everyone is looking for the experts from cyber security. So I'm sure that this session will really help to the students and teachers who are attending this cyber security awareness week. And they will use the knowledge shared by the experts uh, as per the needs of, as how they want to grow. There will be some students who want to understand what is cybersecurity, and there will be some people who will be in the advanced stage. So they will get an opportunity to explore the concepts further, and they will come up with some new idea or new solutions. What are the challenges we are facing in cybersecurity? So once again, congratulations to RIT ACM and CSI RIT for taking the lead. And for faculty members, thank you, Dr. Vanita, Dr. Borkar, Anita Patil and Soumi Banerjee for taking the lead. And on the behalf of management of RIT and on behalf of Diva Patil deemed to be university, I would like to thank all the speakers who are agreed to deliver the lectures during this Cyber Security Awareness Week. And this is a good, I will say, sign or what is the activity carried out on the eve of our Foundation Day. So thank you once again to all the organizers and attendees, and I'm sure that these sessions will be really helpful for all the attendees. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with your knowledge and valuable words. Now, we will further proceed with the session. Today's session will be taken by Mr. Aditya Jain. He is a graduate from BITS Pilani. He specializes in creating artificial intelligence for drones. He has been working in the field of cybersecurity for approximately 10 years, and he is also certified in the field. Participants, please feel free to ask all your doubts. The attendance will be taken after the event and there will be quizzes during the event. So be attentive and get the maximum out of the event. Now, I request Aditya sir to begin with the session.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the wonderful introduction. A very good evening to all, and I'm very happy to be here and be a part of the Cybersecurity Awareness Week. I'll just quickly share my screen with you. Just give me a minute. Yeah. So, as Sir said, and as it was stated by ma'am, that we're here to discuss about everything related to cybersecurity, what it is, what it means, and especially what is cybersecurity in 2021. Things were very different 10 years ago, or probably 15 years ago, when the internet started taking the boom, and people were just getting familiarized with the concept of the internet. But in 2021, everything has changed. Today, we live off the internet. We are always there. And anything we do today, let it be education. So, because of the COVID crisis, our education also happened from home, right? A lot of people who were working from home. So, everything was based out of the internet. So, the aim of this session is to understand what is cybersecurity, where does it come in today, and also what do cybersecurity professionals do in their daily lives, and how can you, if you're interested, how can you make a career in cybersecurity as well. So let's get started. I'll quickly introduce myself, right? I'm Aditya Jain. I'm founder of a company called Tech Brewery, and we deal in cybersecurity education specifically. Other than that, like ma'am said, I have a thing for robotics and artificial intelligence as well, and I've been into cybersecurity for approximately 10 to 11 years. These are a few certifications that I hold. I'm a certified instructor from EC Council, and a certified ethical hacker, a licensed penetration tester, and etc. Right, so that's about me. So let's start the session by talking about what is cybersecurity. So today there's a very big misconception, thanks to movies. Let's say let's call them movies. Let's call them social media. That cybersecurity is probably just a few clicks away, right? You do a few clicks and you made things secure and everything's great. So we're gonna bust a few myths today. So starting with, let's say, what does a cybersecurity professional do, right? Now in a company, there are different teams which are created. We'll talk about them in detail in the coming slides. But the major aim of a cybersecurity professional is to save data, right? Is to secure the data of anyone. So let's say there is Facebook, right? You're using Facebook. So the aim of the professional, right? Someone's and there's a cybersecurity professional in Facebook who's doing a job. Uh, that person's aim is to secure your data, right? Your login credentials, for example. Well, that's basically, in short, what cybersecurity is. It's securing data. With cybersecurity, you must have heard another term, right, which is thrown around these days. It's called ethical hacking. So when you hear the term ethical hacking, firstly you get confused, right? Okay, so we've been born and brought up listening to hacking as a bad thing. So we've seen hackers being doing malicious activities. So how can that be ethical? That's the point. And if it's ethical, is hacking legal, right? And is it like movies in real life? Some of you or a lot of you might have done coding in your past. So hacking is not any different, right? It's following a systematic approach in and then using that approach to get to your destination. That's about it. So what is ethical hacking? Well, as the name suggests, it's doing hacking with ethics. But what does that mean? Well, that means, let's say you are driving a car, right? You apply for a driving license. You get your license, and now you're driving your car. So you're allowed to drive, correct? You are legally allowed to drive. But if you crush someone, right? Let's say you take that car and you crush someone under it, well, that's illegal. You are not allowed to do that, right? So similarly, hacking is legal if done with permissions. If someone gives you permission to hack, let's say, their website, then it's legal. But if you do it without anyone's permission, then it becomes illegal, right? So that's what ethical hacking means. But before we go there, like I said, let's discuss that if cybersecurity is actually required. Is it even required or not? Okay, it sounds really cool. All right, you're hacking into stuff and then you're securing stuff. That's the main aim. The main aim of hacking is to get into a website or get into a system, find the loopholes through which you can get into a system, and then cover those loopholes. That's the aim, right? To secure your system, to secure your web server, right? To secure your firewall, probably your VPN, etc. So before we dive into that, let's discuss if it's really required today. Before going into cybersecurity, let's take another example. Right? An analogy. So India has a population of around 1.3 billion people, whereas Australia just has a population of around 25 million. The police officials, like you can see under them, the numbers differ, right, by a huge amount. In Australia, there are around 54,000 police officials, whereas in India, there are about 1.9 million. That's more than 10 times, right? Why is that? Well, the logical reasoning is that more the people that are there, the more police officials you need to keep them in control, right? So the more the people, the more crime rate there is, and because of the more crime rate, right, there's better probability, right, for crime to happen, and then you need more police officials. Similarly, now see the number of internet users in the world. You'll see it's approximately 3.5 times than the population of India, right? 4.7 billion. Now, when there are 4.7 billion people on the internet, we will obviously be needing police officials, right? Online to catch thieves. People will try to steal things. They will try to steal your money. They will try to steal data. right? Again, which is a form of money today. So they might, if you're into cryptocurrency, they might try to steal your Bitcoin, correct? So that's a logical reasoning out there, that this is a reason why we require cybersecurity professionals today. Coming to okay, coming to data security. Now, when we talk about cybersecurity, like I said, the aim is to secure your data. Now, you might think that why is it important for me as a person? I really don't care. Well, today you're connected to this call either via your smartphone or your desktop or laptop, right? If you're using a desktop or laptop, you're using Google Meet. Okay, that's one tool you're using. You might be on LinkedIn. You might be on. You might be using Zoom. You might be using tools like Slack, probably even Microsoft Office. Correct. So you're using different things. Similarly, if you have a smartphone, right, you also have applications on those devices. You have WhatsApp, you have Telegram, you have Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Gmail, and the list goes on and on. Right? You use all these apps. What is happening when you're using these apps? Your data is getting collected by these companies and they're storing it in their servers. Seeing this, how would you feel if your data gets leaked? Let's say you're having a chat with one of your close relatives, and it's a personal chat, right? Probably with your wife or your husband, probably with your parents, with a very good friend, right? Probably, if you're doing a job or if you have your own business, probably with one of your clients, you're having a conversation or you've shared an email, right, with one of your quotes, and that gets leaked. How would you feel? Not good, right? Let's say you have a business and there is an so let's assume a scenario that there's Infosys, right? Now Infosys wants XYZ things. Right? There is a small tender where they want XYZ things, and everyone has to give in their quotes. The lowest quote wins. Now today, when you're sending a quote, if that email gets leaked by your competitor, if they are able to get your email, they will know your rate, right? Whatever rate you're quoting in the market, and they will lower it. They will lower the rate and get the order. So you cannot afford to do that, right? You cannot afford to have that scenario in your life. That is where data security comes in. Anything you do today, let it be going to the market, it is being logged by, let's say, Google. If you're using an Android phone, you can go to Google Maps, click on your timeline, and you'll be able to see your entire history of wherever you've been since the day you've logged into that application, right? So if you've been logged in since 4 years, you can go back to any date, any time, and see where you were. You can even see the different routes you had taken. So, which is very, very scary today. So the aim of a cybersecurity professional, right, is to secure this data. Let it be a WhatsApp chats. Today you can open WhatsApp, and if you want to do it, you can do it right now. Open WhatsApp application and try to message someone, but a new contact. Normally, someone who you don't message normally, right? And so that a new chat window opens up. Once you do that, you will realize that there's something called end-to-end encryption that's written in WhatsApp. That it says that your messages are end-to-end encrypted. Tap for more details and XYZ. What is end-to-end encryption? What they're trying to say is that, okay, you are sending messages through our application, and they're supposed to be stored on our servers for backup. But or we are, even if they're not stored on our servers, we are responsible for taking it from point A and sending it to point B. But don't worry, because they're end-to-end encrypted, we cannot read them even if we want, right? There is a 128-bit AES encryption, let's say, and we cannot read them. So even if something happens, even if the court tells us that, let's say if there's a criminal case going on, and even if the court tells us that you have to give us the WhatsApp chats of this terrorist, let's say, right? Even then, we can't give them because we don't have it. But sadly, if you read the news in the last 2 days, WhatsApp is now trying to encrypt the backup as well. So a lot of you would be keeping a backup, right, on let's say Google Drive or OneDrive or or iCloud for WhatsApp. What you didn't know was till date the chats were not encrypted in the backup. They're end-to-end encrypted. That's great, but they were never encrypted in the backup. And they've just come up with the thing that they're trying to now encrypt it. So these are a few things, right, via which your data can go out and which you would not like. So hence, that's the main aim for cybersecurity professionals. Talking about the life of a cybersecurity professional, let's see. Firstly, of course, we hack for a living, right? We are hacking always, and it doesn't get cooler than that. You've seen it in movies. It's way better in real life. And secondly, of course, we do everything legally because we do it with permissions. We're allowed to do it. If we want, we can do it illegally and then go to jail. That's an option that's always there with someone. But why do that? Correct? Why risk everything? Thirdly, most important, we create strong defenses to secure data. So, like I said, that's the main aim. The main aim is to secure data, right? And we help catch the bad guys. So now, where does this come in? I just said that we hack for a living, and now we are saying that we help catch the bad guys. At this point, I would like to introduce the different domains in cybersecurity. Today, I have been talking about the offensive domain, in which we hack, we find out loopholes, and we give a solution to cover those loopholes. Then there's a different, so that's the offensive side. Then there is a defensive side, right? The defensive side is people who are trying to defend attacks. So let's say those might be the network administrators in a company, right? Who are configuring the firewalls, the VPNs, the intrusion. So those are the defensive people, and then comes the forensic people. So now, if let's say a hack happens, or if some data goes away, or a ransomware attack happens, right? A ransomware attacks are very famous these days, since a few years. So if a ransomware attack happens, firstly you want to get your data back. Everything is encrypted. You want to get your data back. Secondly, let's say some money was stolen, right, from a bank account. You want to catch the hacker. Just like in the movies you see a murder is done, and after the murder is done, then the forensic team comes and they try to, search the area for fingerprints and everything. Similarly, in the digital world, there is a forensic team. It's called digital forensics. They come and they try to find the digital footprints of hackers, right? Who they were, where they came from, which country, which city, what was their IP address, what was the MAC address, XYZ. So, we also help catch the bad guys. And then the best thing, if you're in this industry, you're always learning about newer technologies. Blockchain came, all right, what's blockchain? You learn about that, right? There's a new VPN coming up, you learn about that. So you're always learning, and it's always great. Okay. So I talked a lot about hacking and this and that and everything. I would like to now show you a small demo of two different attacks and make you see what hackers do and what the different vulnerabilities. Let's say if you're a coder, right? If your coding is wrong, if your coding is bad, then what can happen, right? If you're not a coder, you're not a techie person, let's say. You're an average user. You might get a phone call. You might get a phone call and you might be told that, okay, you have a bank account. We're calling from, let's say, ICICI Bank or HDFC Bank or SBI, right? And there is some issue in your account and we would like, it will get automatically closed and you probably lose your money. Well, if you don't want that, you should share your account details. share your account details with us, share your card details, share your CVV number, or you'll get an OTP, share the OTP, right? All of that. So that's called phishing. Now, because we are on a call out here, I can't do a virtual call, but I'll show you phishing in terms of website cloning, right? We're going to clone Gmail and we're going to try to get credentials of some other user, right, via Gmail. So that's something I'm going to show you. And then after that, I'm also going to show you another attack called SQL injections. It's pretty fun. Right, so let's start. So let's start with phishing. For this demo, I will be using an operating system called Parrot Security, right? For the first demo at least. Now there are two major. If you want to get into this industry, if you want to get into cybersecurity, there are two major operating systems that you can download. They're both free. That's the best part. All open source, and you can start practicing. Right? The first one is Parrot Security, which is open. The second one is called Kali Linux, right? This is Kali. Let me just log into it. Yeah. So this is Kali Linux. This used to be a this was a very famous operating system. Recently, Parrot Security, it's a much more lighter version, than Kali Linux, and I prefer it. Like till 2017, 18, Kali was good, but now I prefer Parrot OS. Let me quickly give you a demo of both the operating systems. Because if you want to get into it, you can get into it as soon as this webinar ends. So if I come here, you'll see there's something called applications. I can come to applications, and there are all different categories, right? These categories have different tools. For example, for information gathering, there are tools like Nmap is there, right? POF is there, ReconNG, Sparta, ZenMap, multiple ones. Then if you want to find vulnerabilities in a system or in a network, then you have things like Nessus, Nikto, OpenVAS. So you get the point, right? These operating systems have pre-installed tools which you can use to start your career in cybersecurity. Similarly, in Parrot Security, if you go to applications, you can go to pen testing. And again, there's a tab called most used tools. So these are basically the famous ones, like Burp Suite is there, Armitage is there, GoBuster is there, Multigo is there, right? So all of that. So let's start. We'll first look at phishing. I'm going to first create my aim is to create a fake Gmail page, put it online on the internet, and give you guys the link, right? I would then ask you to go to the link. Please do not write down your real username and password. Write down some fake credentials, and we'll see how that goes, right? So for this, I'm going to use something called an SE toolkit or a social engineering toolkit. So they ask us to run it as root. Let's do that. All right. So this is the social engineering toolkit, which is just started. So it gives us a menu, and there are multiple options. They ask us to select from it. So we go to we'll select the first option, that's social engineering attacks. Right. Our aim is to clone a website. So after this we go to the second option. Again, we're shown multiple options, right? Like create a payload and listener, mass mailer attack, etc. We'll go to the website attack vectors. So that's 2. Then we go to the credential harvester attack methods. That's 3. So it's 1, 2, and 3. Right? Credential harvester attack method, because our aim is to steal usernames and passwords. I do that. So that it gives us multiple things. That it has a predefined web templates, or it can clone any website, or you can import any website if you have it in a local machine. So I'm just going to use a default web template out here, right? It asks for my IP address. This is fine. Let me clone Google, right? So I'll go to Gmail, and that's about it. I have selected my website is now online. That's the first step. Let's check it out. Let's check out our website on my local machine at the moment. I'm opening Mozilla Firefox. all I have to do is write localhost. And as you can see, this website is now hosted on my local machine. Well, things are going great. Now time to put it on the internet. I'm going to use a small tool called ngrok. ngrok. I'll write HTTP and I'm running the website on port 80. So I'll just write 80 and press enter. It's connecting with servers and that's about it. This is the link, right? I'll copy the link address. Check it on my, so this is a different operating system running on a virtual machine. I'm now opening a browser of my main machine, of my Windows 11 machine. I'll enter it and see if it works. Okay, perfect, it works, right? Now all I need to do is take this link and give it out to people, right? If I want, I can go to websites like, URL shortener websites where I can shorten the URL and then send it out, or I can send this out in an email, correct? Just for the demo purpose, I'm gonna first show you how this works. So let's say if someone gets this, I am someone else, and they open this and they get an email and password area, right? And they write Aditya, and let's see, and they write the password and they press sign in. I want you to see what happens on the left hand side, right? As soon as I click sign in on my machine, I get this, where you can see that the possible username field is Aditya and the possible password field is super secret password. That is what was entered by the user. So if today you get an email which says that, oh great, you won the lottery, right? I'm sure everyone gets that. You won the lottery, or if someone says that, okay, we are XYZ people and we want this, or we are from a bank, click here, log in, make sure to always check the URL, right? Make sure you always check what you're typing in, right? If it's the genuine website or not, you should do that. Just to try it out, I am going to send this link out in the chat section. I hope it doesn't crash my system. Let me just copy the link again. Just copy the link and paste it. Okay. Why don't you try going to this website, to the link that I've shared, and write down, do not write down your real credentials, please. Write down some normal email ID and normal password. See if this works. Okay. There is some issue coming for some reason. Let me copy the other one. Why don't you try the HTTPS version? Let me just check if it's still up. Okay, yeah, so as you can see, the error is too many connections, right? Because it's a very, very basic example that I'm showing. So it's not created for so many different connections, but so that's the problem, correct? In the normal case scenario, we'll be sending it to one person probably, and trying to phish the emails, right? So this is called phishing. So this is a new one. Probably one or two of you, if you can click it, might get lucky and be able to open the page. But you get the point, how this works, right? So do not fall for phishing attacks. Phishing, which comes under social engineering, is one of the most famous types of attacks present today. Correct? All right. So this is a small example. In this, using this toolkit, I can also clone some other websites. So for example, if I go to Credential Harvester and website cloner, I can write, let's say, HTTPS. Let's do Facebook. Okay, so it's now cloned Facebook. If I go to my local host, hopefully it's updated. Okay, it's still the cache. Let me just restart it. Hopefully it works now. Oh, there's some cloning issue going on. Probably a speed issue. Right? That's why. It normally works. So there are multiple tools. One is SE Toolkit. Then there is a tool called Social Fish is there as well. Right? So there are multiple tools which you can use. This OFish is there for testing out uh, employees in a, in a company. So multiple tools, right? So this was a basic phishing attack where you get a where you get a link. Once you click it, and you can then log in. You send in your credentials, and the hacker gets your credentials. So we have a question which says, someone asks, do popular antiviruses like Kaspersky protect against such attacks? Well, they normally do, or not these. So let's say Google Chrome themselves, right? Now phishing has become so popular that people like Mozilla and Google, they've implemented it into their browser itself. So if there's a bad phishing link, then anyways they flag it, right? But what do people do today? So let's say there's Facebook. There is Facebook, right? They will change the spelling, right? So now if you look at my screen, you'll see it's FACB00K. Now someone might buy this domain, correct? And then set a link of this. It's a genuine website. They can apply for a genuine SSL certificate. Right? They can make the website look exactly like Facebook, and then send you a link. Right? That is something that will not be flagged. So that's a major problem these days. Yes. So also, so what I showed you, it was a very basic attack, right? Where, like I said, Google and Facebook, especially if you do the HTTPS version, it will flag it, correct? But if you create your own domain name, if you buy a domain and do it using that, then it works perfectly, correct? All right. So this was one of the attacks. The second attack I'm going to show you is called an authentication bypass attack. What does that mean? So today when you go to a website, you have a username and password column, right? Let's say to log in. Let's say Facebook. You can write down your username, you can write down your password, and press enter, and it logs in. How does it log in? 1 second, we have a question. Yes, sorry, you can use URL shorteners, right? So that's there. Identify is by, you can open them, or you can go to a website like Fish Tank and paste it out there, and then see if it's malicious or not, right? Fish Tank, PHISHTANK. Okay. So moving towards authentication bypass. So the username and password comes here. What if I tell you that you do not, if the coding is bad, you do not require a username or a password to get into the website. I'm going to show you what you can write and why it works as well. And why does it work? And you can just log into the website. Let's start. So what happens when you write a username Aditya and password as password, let's say, and press enter. These credentials via HTTP or HTTPS, right, via Postman, go back to the server. The server has a database. Right? The server has a database which has a lot of tables and it's storing usernames, passwords, and this and that and everything. So there's a language called SQL or structured query language, which talks between your code and your database. Now in this scenario, the SQL syntax will look something like this. In your code, you have a line which has something like this, right? So Select star from users where username is this and password is this. That means that when a user writes a username, in this case Aditya, and password, right, and both the conditions are met, right? There's an and means both the conditions are met, or means that either one condition is met, right? Or both are also met, or even one works. In this case scenario, they say that if the username is Aditya and the password, so if the username and the password match in the database, then well, you can log in, right? You can get everything from the table and you can showcase the data. It's basically logging in. Knowing this, knowing that our username and password will land directly into these fields, can we manipulate them? Can we play around with them? What happens if instead of Aditya as a username, I write something like this, right? Or I write something like this. Let's see what happens. If we remove this Aditya from here, now my input gets copy pasted in this area, right? Let's see what the statement now becomes. The statement becomes select star from users, okay? That's star means everything, right? Where username is equal to Aditya or 1 is equal to 1, right? So we've manipulated the entire SQL query, and we all know that this is a true statement. 1 is equal to 1. Because of this, the first part becomes true, right? 1 is equal to 1, it becomes true. The same thing we can paste out here. If we do that, again the password is Aditya or 1 equal to 1. The password query, this also becomes true. When both the criteria become true, right, and there's an and in the middle, then because both are true, right, the first entry in the database table gets returned. That means you log in as the first person whose account was created. Normally the first account is always the admin account. So you normally log in as admin. Correct? So let's quickly try this out. This is called authentication bypass. Without knowing a username or password, you are able to get in. Correct? So let's try this out. I'll go to Google. Let's try to find a website. Right? I'll write in URL. I want a login page. That's the first thing that I want. In URL, let's do somewhere where our jurisdiction might be fine. .pk website, right? So I'm trying to find websites with login pages which end with .pk. Right? We have a few names. I can click. I've opened the first 5. Right? Let's go to the first one. There's a username and password area. Let me write the same code out here. Right? I've written 1 or 1 equal to 1 with the correct apostrophes. Let me copy that and paste it and press the login button. Okay, it says invalid username or password. It didn't work. Not a problem. Let's go to the next one. Let's do username and password and I'm not a robot. Let's do login. Okay, it doesn't work. Unknown username. Not a problem. Let's go to the third one. Let's do username and password and press login. Okay. And what do we have here? As soon as I do that, you see that I've logged in to the admin panel, right? I have logged into the website as an administrator. Now, of course, this website is not used anymore, and it was active a long time back, and it's hacked 1,000 amount of times. So, but that's how it works, right? So these are different attacks which are, which are going on. But you get the point, right? So we got 1. Let's try another. Okay, we couldn't get in. Okay, there's some issue out here. Let's try a few more. This is Standard Chartered. Let's not go there. So normally modern websites don't fall for this. There are higher end attacks for modern websites, right, which we cannot go in at the moment. But let's try to find another one if we can, if you're lucky. This doesn't seem to work, nor does this. This might work. Okay. So this is something called facetech.pk, right? And we were able to log in out here as well with the credentials, right? Without having the credentials. So it's something about some educational website, correct? This is the National Library for Physical Sciences. Okay, so characters are not allowed. This will not work mostly. Right, so you get the point. So without having the username or password, we were able to log in to the websites. Right? I can show that to you again. Okay, we are anyways logged in. Fine. So in this website, we were admin. We went to the admin panel, and you can find everything out here. So these are two different attacks. One is phishing and one is authentication bypass. By understanding the coding part of it, by understanding what is going on, you can try to break it. Right? Now that I know the loopholes, I can give suggestions to the creators on how to fix these loopholes. Right? Okay, so we have a few questions. Let me just quickly go through them. Yes, Tails is a similar OS one. Suhas, yes, a SQL injection. This is the part. This was like SQL injections. SQL injections can be really advanced. I'll show you another example right now of a very advanced method. Right? Yes, Vivan, that's true. They use anti-injection methods. Um, Amir, so I prefer Parrot OS these days than Kali Linux because of how light it is and how bug-free it is. Kali has a lot of bugs these days. So mine is a customized version from the company. It's not the version that you can download. And this is when you eventually end up doing the certification. So they give you a customized version by the creators of Kali. Okay. All right. So I'll quickly show you another example of SQL injections. So firstly, we did a very basic one, right? Let's go to a website called testphp.oneweb. It's a website for practicing, right? As you can see, this is not a real shop. It's an example of PHP application, right? It's there for you to practice on, right? Okay. So I can go to sign up out here. And as you can see, there's username and password. Right? I can copy paste my code and press login, and you'll see that I log into this. So our first attack works. What if our attack did not work? What if our attack did not work? But I know that I can play around with some SQL syntaxes, right? Out here. So let's see what we can do. I've written a small piece of code. For people who are interested, you can click a screenshot if you want this. And I'm going to this website, and all I'm trying to do, so let's assume, I've assumed I know the username, right? The username is test. I know the username, and I'm trying to find out what the password is. I have no idea what the password is, but using the true conditions, right? We just saw that if we create a true condition, right, I can log in. So let's say in this case scenario, I want to find out what the password is. I don't want to log in. I want to find out what the password for user test is, right? So I write the username as test. In the password, right? In the password area, I want to find out what it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that, okay, username is test, password, first letter of the password is A. If it is A, the condition will become true and I have login. So I will come to know that the first letter is A. If it is not A, I will try with B. Then I will try with C, right? Let's say I get C. Then I will move on to the second letter. I will say, okay, now I know the first letter. Then I'll say, username is test and the second letter of the password is A. If that condition is true, I will log in. So I will now know that the first letter of the password is C and the second letter is A, right? It's something like that. So let's quickly run the attack. Let's do Python SQL.py. Okay. The attack has started on the website, right? You can see I'm trying with username test. Password, I'm saying that, okay, the first word, the first letter is 0. If it's true, log in and tell me. If no, go to 1, go to 2, go to 3. We are trying for every letter, every number, every letter, every special character. So what happens? Okay, I've scrolled down. We get our first hit at the letter T. So the first letter, right, the first password, the first letter of the password is T. I then move on to the second letter. I say, okay, what is the second letter of the password? Is it 0? Is it 1? Is it 2? Our hit comes on E, right? Then we go to the third. The third hit comes on S. Then we go to T. The fourth hit we have on T, right? So we've seen that we know the username is test. Password till now we know test. Now we're trying to find out the fifth letter of the password. Let's see. So we've tried to find the numbers. We've tried to find lowercase characters. We've now moved to uppercase characters. Right? We're trying to find what is the fifth letter of the password, if any. If we try every scenario and we do not find any fifth letter which works, that means whatever we found till now, right, that is the password. That means a 4-digit password. Let's see. Okay, so our test is ended. We could not find a fifth letter, and it tells us that the password found is test. If we go to the website, we know that this is true because, of course, it's a demo website. They've written that the username is test and the password is test, right? But we were able to find it using a blind SQL injection attack. Correct? Using a blind SQL injection attack. It's one of the most complicated attack methods in SQL injections. Right? Again, I will show you the code. If you want to take a screenshot, you can do that. So as I'll say mate. Once I haven't used those versions, so I cannot comment on them. Vivan, no, I wasn't brute forcing. I was playing with SQL queries. I created SQL queries, as you can see, right? There's a SQL query that I've created, and I'm passing. So there's an OR statement, the same thing, right? So there's an apostrophe. Sorry, there's an apostrophe, and then there's an OR. Instead of 1 equal to 1, I say substring of pass, right, of the first letter is 1, right? So that's what I'm trying to do. Then I try to find the second letter and then the third letter. So I'm using SQL queries. Right, so this is a small taste of what it is, how it feels to be a cybersecurity professional in terms of phishing, the different attacks that you might be targeted with. And then if you're a coder, if you're creating websites, then if they're not coded well, how can people just use SQL injections to bypass authentication altogether? Correct? Let's talk about what do these professionals now do in companies. And firstly, before what do they do in companies, we need to know that do companies even hire them? Are companies interested in such professionals, or is it just a hobby? Okay, so I'm going to take an example of one of the courses, right? So for example, EC Council has the CEH course, right? The Certified Ethical Hacker course. So if I take that course, or if I take probably an LPT course, so for EC Council, so this is one company, right? There are many different companies which offer courses. I'm just taking one example. You can see the companies which hire from EC Council, right? Which hire EC Council certified professionals today, right? There's ICICI Bank, there's Infosys, there's Cisco, there's Amazon, PwC, EY, right? You can see the big four out here, right? Some of them at least. There's Tata, there's HP, there's Accenture, Microsoft, AIG, Marriott, correct? Not only private companies, even government organizations today hired cybersecurity professionals. A small example is if we talk about Haryana, right? So I am from Panchkula, which is in Haryana. So I have personally taught the cybersecurity cell of Haryana. Right? I have trained them in finding out in offensive methods in cybersecurity. Right? That's different ways of hacking, and they also went for the CEX certification that was there. So basically, these certifications are very important in today's date, and there's a huge amount of need. Talking about your roles, your job roles, okay, you say Aditya, it's fine. You say these companies hire, but for what positions? What are the different positions that I need to search for online to see if there's a job availability or not? Well, there is always a certified ethical hacker, right? There's security analyst, right? There are information security officers. There is a digital forensic examiner, right? Forensic analyst is there. Security auditors are there. It's SOC analysts. SOC is an entire team which is responsible for the security of a company. So that is there. Okay, so there are a lot of job roles which you can go to Indeed, you can go to multiple places, try to find out. Okay, so this is seeing this, you will realize how much cybersecurity is important in today's day. How much important it is. How much important it is to have your defenses right. Now we've spoken about companies taking you or companies taking cybersecurity seriously. But once you go into the company, how do they divide you, right? What are the different things? What are the different norms in a company? Right? In the corporate culture, what are the different norms? We will first talk about three major teams, right, where cybersecurity exists. These three teams are responsible for cybersecurity today. If you plan on going there, if you plan to get into a company and you are interested in cybersecurity, these are the teams you need to apply for. The first team is the red team, right? The red team are basically the offensive hackers. Hackers who will hack systems, find out loopholes, and try to cover them. Right? Those are the offensive people. The second ones are the blue team. Blue team are the defenders. They are the people like network administrators, correct? People who configure the networks in a company, people who configure the firewalls, people who configure the intrusion detection systems, people who set up honeypots, right? If you know what honeypots are. Otherwise, people who set up VPNs, all of those, as you can see, they are the defenders. The third team, the major teams we're talking about, is the yellow team. The yellow team, as you can see, are the software coders and the architects, or also known as the builders. They are the people who are coding the tools. In a company might have a website, right? Let's say Infosys has a website, but they might have 100 programs created by Infosys only for Infosys being used in the intranet of their company, right? Or of the office. So these coders need to do secure coding, like we just saw. If your coding is not secure, people can just bypass authentication, for example, right? So the coders, so these are the three people, major people responsible for cybersecurity today in an organization. Now, these are the old ones, right? Today, there are three more teams which have come up, which you can create by mixing these basic teams, right? So when you mix the red and the blue team, you come up with a purple team. The purple team is where the offensive people and the defensive people work together, right? So it's a integrating defensive tactics with offensive results, correct? That's the purple team. There is a green team where the defenders and the coders get together. So they're responsible for enhancing security automation with design and code. That means the blue team will tell the yellow team that, okay, boss, we need this, right? These are the defenses that we want in place. We want your program to go through, let's say, a VPN channel. Right? We want your program to send out on port, let's say, 9005, right? Because we are only allowing that from our firewall. So blue team and yellow team work together, and they call the green team. And then there's the yellow and the red team, right? When they work together, it's called orange team. This is basically the yellow team, the coders, just understanding the different areas where hackers can attack. The coders don't know hacking, right? The builders, they don't know hacking. So the red team tells them that, okay, these are the different frontiers on which we can hack. So you need to make them secure, correct? So these are the different teams, and then there's the management. The management is also called the white team. And so analysts, compliance, logistics, all of that comes under the white team. Right? Okay, so we have a few questions before I move on. Let's see. So we'll go with Suhas's question first. What do you think of black hat hackers who support or help the people by affecting the government or organization? So Suhas, if I got your question correct, you're talking about hackers who are going against the government. If that's true, then well, that's illegal. Right? There are of course hackers which are hired by the government as well. Right? That is legal, and there's a cyber warfare which goes on. So let's say China is attacking India, India is attacking Pakistan, or India is attacking UK. Things like that keep on going on. So that's fine, but a lot of people are grey hat hackers, right? Grey hat hackers are hackers who are doing a job in, let's say, in the morning to evening they're doing a job. By night they hack for them for some of their reasons, right? That's them. So we have a few questions for certificates. Okay, there is external classes for certifications. Yes. So when you're talking about certifications, there are multiple certifications in the domain, right? For example, we do them. We are tied up with EC Council, or the people responsible for this talk as well, and we have our certifications which we give out. So of course there are different classes for them. They're very grueling sessions, very interesting as well. Right? Once you finish the course, once you do everything, you can sit for an examination and then get the certificate. Right? Okay. Are there any other questions before I move on? Sure, Amir. You can go on. You have a question? Yes, Vivan. Grey hat is it's again illegal, right? White hat is the only legal one where you're doing a job. Other than that, if you do it with permission, it's fine. Without permission, it's bad. Bunch, the thing is, I am not a very big fan of CompTIA courses because of how basic they are. So that's the only thing. Amir, I prefer Parrot OS. Like I said, Kali Linux, I used to use Kali Linux, or I used to use Backtrack in the old days, which turned into Kali Linux eventually. But these days I prefer Parrot any day. Hemang, Parrot OS has more features than Kali, be rest assured. And it's much more stable than Kali. So Amay asks, how can you start your journey? Amay, I'll just come to that point. I have a slide specifically for people who are interested in cybersecurity as a domain. All right, it's a very detailed slide. I think so it's the next one. Let's see. Yeah, perfect. It's the next one. So a lot of you are interested in, okay, how to make a career out of it. Cybersecurity seems interesting. We've heard about it. We've seen a small demo, right? Stick till the end. I'm going to show you a major demo as well, where I will show you how to hack into a Linux machine. We've seen websites. I will now show you a live machine in which I'll hack, right? Hack into that and get admin credentials. So for the moment, let's see, making a career out of it, right? How do you create this? How do you take this knowledge, or how do you get into this industry today? Because let's say, so I'm a computer engineer, right? Every year there are lakhs of computer engineers who are graduating. but where are the jobs? Today, it's not enough to just have a college degree. College degree is very important. With that, you also need extra certificates, extra degrees, right? You have to showcase that you have the potential, right? That you've given in the time to gain those other things. So if you're interested in cybersecurity, this is how you go about it. First, get a strong foundation, right? If you think that you can go to YouTube, you can download stuff and learn, it's fine, but you will never understand what you're getting into, right? So I will recommend you to get into a course like CEH, right? Take a course. Any course from any company is not very long, right? Normally the courses are 40 hours. You do the course, and you will get an understanding of what hacking is from basics to end. In movies, it's not pressing four characters. It's a multi-step procedure, right? Every step is explained explained to you in the courses. So my first suggestion would be, if you're interested, find a course which suits you, like the CEH, and do it. Right. The second is, once you do the certification, I don't want you to go for another certification and then another and end up spending all the money that you have. Don't do that. Take one certification, get your foundation strong, and then practice. Right? Practice makes you perfect. There are things, for example, in EC Council, there's something called iLabs, right, where you can practice hacking. Then there are websites like Attack Defense. There is OneHub, correct? These are the basic ones where you can practice. After this, you say that, okay, Aditya, we've done this, we're practicing. I'm in college, I'm in my university, I'm studying, but I also feel that I'm giving it too much time. And while I'm doing it, why not earn? Can I earn while learning as well? Well, you can. You can go to websites like, at the third point, you can go to websites like BugCrowd or HackerOne and do bug bounty programs. You can try to find a bug legally on a website. If you found it, you can tell them and they will pay you for that bug report, right? Then there's a website called CodeRed as well. CodeRed, you can go. Let's say you say that, okay, Aditya, I don't have the budget. I want to learn networking as well, right? I want to learn hacking as well. I want to learn website hacking as well, and this and that. But I don't have the budget to do 10 courses. Every course is expensive. So what do? I'll say go to CodeRed. It's an amazing website. They have a yearly subscription, right? And they don't give you the certificate, but they have all the courses like CCNA, CCNP, and this and that for hacking, wireless hacking, website hacking, all of those for a monthly subscription, like Netflix. It's like Netflix, but for tech stuff. So you can go to CodeRed and try that out. Once that is done, and you feel that you're confident, you can then take it to the next level. You can go for a higher certification like ECSA or LPT. Today, they're combined to, both these courses are now combined. It's called CPENT. You can go for that. You can go to a website called Hack the Box, and you can start hacking out there from easy boxes to medium to hard boxes and to extremely tough boxes, right? Hack the boxes there. And then if you really are interested in going to the next level, you can do a thing like CISO, right? Chief Information Security Officer course, or CISSP or CISM, right? Those are the managerial courses that you can go and do, and then you can become an information security officer, right? So these are the different steps. Again, you can click a screenshot for future reference, correct? All right. We have a few questions. Let me quickly take them. Vishal, yes, you can. You can also do it simultaneously. What I will recommend is that while you are doing your college degree, right, everyone has free time in the middle. Why not pursue it then as well? So that once you go out of college and you're sitting, in the placement meetings, you have some extra stuff to show. Cost of none. That's the beauty of it. I've personally taught people who are lawyers. I've personally taught people who are also in the medical field, right, and wanted to shift, knowing nothing about computers, just basic, right? Everyone uses computers these days. That's about it. Yes, if you go to a higher course, then there are 10 prerequisites. But if you go for a starting course, a foundation course like CEH, everything is covered. Everything that you want to know is shared with you and taught to you. So nothing is required. Yes, Vivan, you can. And Suhas says CTFs and hackathons versus certifications. Well, CTFs and hackathons only. So I'll tell you what happens. Every hackathon is also basically a CTF, right? CTF shows you stupid things. I'll be very frank with you. It's good to practice, it's good to have fun, but those are not realistic scenarios, right? The scenarios which happen in Capture the Flags, for people who don't know what CTFs are, you basically are given a computer, you have to hack it and try to find a file with some hidden text in it, right? Which is called a flag, to prove that you hacked it. Well, that's not very great in real case scenarios. Normally, you won't find all that, right? But it's good to practice. For starting, it's fine. Certifications are, of course, long term, right? Okay, let's take Rupak's question. For internships, when do you think is the right time for it in terms of knowledge? Internship you can do anytime. See, if you don't know anything, then the company might not give you an internship. Otherwise, I would say do a course, right? Get a certification, use that certification to get yourself an internship while in college, and then use it to get a job later. Simple. Of course, your college degree is equally important, right? But like I said, today multiple things are needed, not just one. Others, it's about I know friends. I never did it, but I had friends who did an internship after every year of, so in their summer vacation, or probably let's say after your first year ends, they used to do an internship. After the second year, they did an internship and express, and so on and so forth. Ame, you can probably talk to one of your teachers, or you can contact me as well. I'll share my contact details later on, and you can see that, right? The languages, Aditya, that are basically used in pen testing are majorly Python. Python is the major language which is used in pen testing. Okay. No, Hemang, you won't require any prerequisites. You can just start it. Okay. Kaustubh has a very interesting question. So Kaustubh asks that are these courses in Coursera and Udemy, are they any good? Right? Because I go to Udemy today, a course is 900 rupees. It's listed at 12,500. It's 900. Tomorrow it's 200. Then it's 50 rupees. Then it's again 1,000 rupees. Are they any good? Well, to get the same answer, Kaustubh, I personally went to Udemy and took a course. But why not? Maybe they are worth it. I took that and I realized, being in this industry since so many years, I realized that if a student does one of those courses, they will get confused for the rest of their career, right? They are very confusing. So just to make it look good, right? They'll teach you 10 things which have no connection, and your basics or your foundation, as I said, right, will not be good. Let's say you want to learn a new language. Let's say you want to learn French today, or you want to learn Mandarin or Cantonese, right? You have to learn the alphabet of those languages before. You can't start learning words or learning sentences. Correct? So your foundation in anything today, if you're doing engineering or if you're doing law or if you're doing BCom, right? Your basic years education is very important. You can't jump to your third year directly, right? You have to go through your first semester, then second semester, then third semester. So your foundation needs to be very strong. And those areas, Coursera, Udemy, personally, I don't like them to build a foundation. No, Shubham, is very easy if your concepts are clear. So get yourself a trainer, right, who can make sure that your concepts get clear than just, making you mug up stuff. Vansh, that's on you. I prefer Python any day. Swaz, you can try to find them online. There are multiple people teaching courses, right? All right. So I'll quickly jump to another demo out here. Okay, first we have the salary, right? If you do a job, You say, what's the salary? This number is actually of 2019, to be frank. 2020, the number was $1,05,000. Of course, it's outside India. But in India, it goes from 4 lakhs to 40 lakhs, depending on your expertise and your, whatever, your interview, especially, right? So the salary is good. The salary is really good. And the reason for a salary being good is monopoly. There aren't a lot of professionals today. That is the major reason, right? You can Google this. You will figure out that it's a very reputable thing. Becoming an ethical hacker and going into cybersecurity, and it pays well as well. So that's a positive. Shri Krishan, I'll say a simple path is to go for one certification, not many. Go one certification, get your foundation strong, and then just practice. Right? In this slide, I showed you places to practice on. You can go to Hack the Box, you can earn from Bugcrowd and HackerOne, you can practice on Attack Defense, you can practice on OneHub, right? You can practice on iLabs. So all of these places are there where you can practice at virtually. So OneHub is free, right? Hack the Box is free. So you can practice there, right? But get your foundation strong. Anyone who wants to take a screenshot can do this. I'll move on to another demo after this, right? In which we will see how a hacker approaches a machine, right? And hacks it eventually. Okay, moving to a demo. Let's close these terminals. Let's open a new one. So I have a computer running, right? I have another virtual machine running, which is vulnerable, which is there to practice. It's a very, very good machine to practice. So I'm going to show you how the approach of a cybersecurity professional when they reach. So let's say my client is Infosys. Let's assume my client is Infosys, and I am in Infosys's office right now, and I'm connected to their LAN. Right? They have told me that Aditya, you need to do a pen test. There's a machine. Okay, let's say there's only one machine, right? Of the 100 machines, we're going to target one. The first job is to find the machine, right? So, 1 second. So, the first thing I do is run net discover. I'm trying to find the different live IP addresses. Correct? Hopefully this works. Okay, we have it. These are the live IP addresses currently connected on my network. I'll stop the attack. I am told, right? I'm told by the company that my attack MAC address is this. Right? So the IP address is 1.11. The first thing I'll do is try to contact it again. As you can see, I am able to contact it. As a cybersecurity professional, I can tell you that this is a Linux machine right now. Okay, one of the reasons is because I've set up, but even if I had not set up, just seeing the output, I can tell you it's a Linux machine. Can someone tell me how? Just by looking at this one line, I can tell you it's a Linux machine that I'm trying to hack. Can someone tell me how did I find out that it's a Linux machine? That's correct, Shroom. It's the TTL value. Right?
Time to live value.
Exactly. It's the time to live value, right? It's 64. Most Linux machines are 64 because there's no hop, there's no router, hence the TTL value did not reduce, and we got it at 64, right? So okay, we got it. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the first. So we have an IP, we've done information gathering. We have this. My aim is to find out which all ports are open in this computer. Right? I'm going to use a tool called Network Mapper or Nmap. Right? I do an Nmap and I follow it with an IP address, and let's see what we get. As soon as we click enter, we get an output, right? Let's see what this output shows us. It says that, okay, starting Nmap, that's fine. This is the report for this IP address pool, the latency. Then it says that 977 closed ports, So I know that it searches for 1,000 famous ports. Okay. Can someone tell me how many ports are there on a computer? How many ports exist on a system? How many ports exist in a computer? Is there anyone who can tell me this? There are 65,536 ports. One is unusable. So there are 65,535 usable ports. Right? Okay. So this searches for 1,000 common ports, 1,000 famous ports. As you can see, it has found port 21 open, port 22 open, port 23. Right? Port 21 by default is the FTP port. Right? That's the file transfer port. Port 22 is SSH, port 23 is Telnet, port 25 is SMTP, right? Simple mail transfer protocol, correct? Used to send email addresses. 53 is domain, 80 HTTP, RPC services are here, and so on and so forth. Right? I'm going to have basic information. Okay, so there are a lot of ports open. I want to go further. I want to now find out the different versions. So let's say there's an FTP server. I want to find out which company's FTP is running, right? I will do something called a service enumeration, right? SV. So service enumeration, SP is just basically a different type of scan that I'm doing. It's a TCP scan, right? Even if I don't like this, by default, I'll do it. It's a stealth scan which happens. All right, I can do this and press enter. This attack will take some time, so I'll stop it. And so that I'm able to see what is happening, I will write another command which is -vv, right? Very verbose output, so that I can see exactly what the program is doing. As soon as I press enter, you can see that the output increases. Right? I can see that okay, we started with an ARP ping scan that happened, then there was DNS resolution which took place, right? And then the scan started. It started figuring out the ports which are open, and then we got the result. Out here you can see the output has changed, right? Earlier we only got the first 3 columns. Now we have 2 other columns which shows the reason, which is the SYNAC. We won't get into the detail, right? The 3 handshakes and what all. We also have the versions, right? We have versions. So for example, there is a version called VSFTPD 2.3.4. We found VSFTPD 2.3.4. Our aim is to see if it's vulnerable or not. Right? I will go to Google and I will write VSFTPD. Let's see what the version is. 2.3.4. 2.3.4 exploit. Is it vulnerable? Well, we see it is, and there is an exploit available. Right? There is an exploit available in a framework called Metasploit. Let's try it out. Let's go to another terminal. I'm gonna now start a framework which has a lot of different attacks, right? A lot of different exploits. Exploits are nothing but attacks. It's called Metasploit. Okay? I'm going to now search for VSFTPD, right? The same version. As you can see, in this specific framework, there is one exploit by the name of VSFTPD 234, which is nothing but for the 2.3.4. Right? I will write down use 0 because that's the ID. Right? That's the ID. Use 0. By doing this, I have now jumped into the exploit. I can do show options. It shows the different settings, right, for this exploit. I can set an rhost. Rhost is remote host. What is the IP address of the machine you're trying to hack? Right. So I'll do set rhost. What was the IP address? It was 192.168.1.1.111. Right. This is the IP address of a target machine. I can clear the screen, see show options. And now you see that the Argos is set. Perfect. All that is left to do is now exploit it. So I will write exploit and press enter. As soon as I do, you will see some output, right? And you will see that you were able to you were able to log in, and you were able to get into as a root. It says found shell, command shell session 1 opened. Well, let's see if I can run some commands. Like, who am I? Root. Okay. What is the name of the machine I'm in? I'm in Linux Metasploitable machine. What is my IP? What is my IP? My IP is 192.168.1.111. As you can see, I can go to the other virtual machine, which I've opened up. This is the IP address of that machine, right? So I was able to get into the machine using this vulnerability. What did I do? Again, I first scanned the IP addresses, found the open ports, found the version running, Googled it, found a vulnerability for that version, and then exploited that version. Correct? So let's try some other method. Let's do SSH. SSH is secure shell. Let's close this. Let's do exit. SSH is secure shell. Let's try SSH. Okay. So when I try to SSH into it, it asks for the password, right? I don't know the password. I have no idea what the password is, so this doesn't work. Let's see. The next is telnet, right? Next is telnet. I will now try to telnet into the session. Okay. As soon as I telnet into it, you can see that there's a banner present, right? Where there's Metasploitable 2, and it says login with MSF admin. Okay. That's pretty stupid of the administrator to keep the credentials on the banner, right? So if I write username MSF admin and password MSF admin, I have now logged on into. I'm now logged into that machine, right? This time, as you can see, I am user MSF admin. I am not root, right? I can do ifconfig and I'm into that machine. If I want to, so that's one part, right, of getting into. The second part is escalating your privileges. Let's say I've gotten into this machine as the user MSF admin. I now want to become root. What do? I will then do something called post exploitation, right, for privilege escalation. There are many ways to do that. A small thing. So for example, in this machine, I know one method that works, right? This machine also has Nmap in it. The same tool which we used. This computer also has that. Nmap has a vulnerability. Old Nmap has a vulnerability that if you enter the interactive mode of Nmap and you write exclamation sh and press enter, a shell opens up. But the shell opens up as root. The shell opens up as root. Your execution ID is root. Anything that I do can be done with root privileges now, right? So I was able to scan the machine, find the open port, go to the open port, find credentials, log into it with a low privileged user, find the vulnerability, internal vulnerability, use that to escalate my privileges and become root. Correct? So this machine can be hacked in probably 12 to 14 different ways. I don't have time to show you everything. Correct? So this is where I will take a break from the demo. Correct? So again, this machine is free for you to download, like your Parrot OS or Kali Linux. This is called Metasploitable 2. It's also by Rapid7. Rapid7 is the same website, which is opened up in the background, right? Rapid7.com. You can Google downloading Metasploitable 2, right? And go to the Rapid7. Right? Go to the Rapid7 Download Metasploitable and download it from there. Also, Vansh has a question. What if you could set up a reverse shell and use Netcat listener and TCP dump? So, Vansh, if you're talking about privilege escalation, if that's what you're talking about, you could get into that, connect back to your machine using Netcat, but still, you anyways have a shell, right? And you'll get the same shell. Our aim was to escalate privileges. You cannot escalate your privileges unless you have that Netcat session initiate from a process which is running with root privileges, right? Okay, so it's a very important question, Suhas, not a problem. But the question is, so dual boot or virtual machine? I personally prefer virtual machine, right? Use VMware. So I'm using VMware Pro out here, right? You can use a VMware Pro, or you get the cracked version online, right? It's not a problem. Or you can dual boot it if you want. The only the only major reason why you should dual boot is if you want to brute force. For brute forcing, you need a GPU, right? VMware, being a second level hypervisor, cannot access your direct hardware, right? If you know what hypervisors are, you cannot access your direct hardware. You can do it through a level 1, a type 1 hypervisor like vSphere or Hyper-V, but those are very expensive. So if you want to make a machine, if you have a desktop, right, and you have a GPU, a strong GPU, and you want to make it into a cracking machine, then you should dual boot it, right? Or put it in another hardware, in another hard disk if you have a desktop. If you have a laptop, I would recommend that. Anyways, you don't have a very high-end GPU, right? It's better to just use a VMware or VirtualBox, whichever you prefer. Mohit, virtual machine it depends, right? What you give it. So if you want, you can give it by default. If you let's say you download Kali Linux, it gives it 512 MB RAM, right? Which is nothing. So I personally give it around 8 GB, but it still works if you don't give it a lot of resources. Especially Parrot works because Parrot is a very very light operating system. No, Vivan, it doesn't. Dual boots don't have major disadvantages. It's just a headache, right? To go into that. It's VMwares are much more easy to use today. Right, Mohit. These virtual machines don't take a lot of stuff. Kali is a bit heavy. If you try Parrot, Parrot should work. Um, okay, the last question, is there any open source BAPT? I did not understand the question. What do you mean by open source BAPT? BAPT is vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. Are you asking like in terms of a job? Is there, can you do it as a freelancer or open source material? If you're asking, then you can Google it. All right. VAPT tool. So there's no one tool. There is no one tool for VAPT. As you can see on my screen, there are probably 100 tools, right? Which all together are called as penetration testing, right? And vulnerability assessment. There's not one tool. All of these are majorly free.
I'm willing to pursue my career in cybersecurity as a penetration tester, like
Mhm.
for a purple team. So how can I I've been interacted with a member of EC councils only. So they told me about four certifications. They were charging about 60,000 rupees, and they were also giving the training. So what should we do for the certification of courses, and where we have to learn these all things?
So what I will say, I mean, a lot of places, right? You can see, for
Yes,
example,
sir.
National EC Council. I am also their official partner,
Ji.
right? Hence, I'm
Yes, sir.
giving this talk on their behalf.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes, sir.
see, it depends on the course that you're taking, right? I will recommend that you go for the course that you're interested in, right?
Yes, sir.
Again, my recommendation would be do the CEH course. Do not go for CND right now. Do not go for CHFI. They're tougher courses, right?
Yes, sir.
You'll
Yes,
get
sir.
really confused. Don't go for courses like ECSS because they're very very basic. You get
Yes,
bored.
sir.
CL is a good course. It's somewhere in the middle. It's not a very basic course and it's not a high-end course,
Yes, sir.
right? Do that, get your basics correct, and then eventually you can go for higher-end courses like CPEN is there, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And for practicing for penetration tester and many things, what should we prefer? like for practicing in Kali Linux or Parrot OS for enhancing our skills and
So
practicing
I
more and
prefer
more?
Parrot OS, like I said, right?
Okay.
Parrot OS is the way to go. It's really come up in the last few years, and then you can of course keep on practicing. The slide that I showed you,
Yes, sir. Yes,
right?
sir.
Places like one hub is hack the boxes, then you can practice out there for free. That's the best part.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So just make sure your foundation is good. If you're still confused, my credentials my contact details have been shared. Right? You can always get in touch with me.
And last two, sir, more questions to put on. Would you prefer Mac OS or Windows OS for using the like virtual machines and all?
So I am not a huge Mac lover, to be very frank. I
Yes,
think
sir.
it's really overrated. So I use a Windows machine, right? And then I use a VMware on that.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Thank you.
It was a very great session to have a welfare knowledge about things.
Thank you so much, man. Let me see
Uh,
the questions.
Sir, may I just convey something? Sir, Abhay, once we are having a AC Council as the academic partner and are already floated these courses. As you are the student of D.Y. Patel University, then you are also able to join that courses. And all the concession and everything is given by the EC Council for these courses. So about the market price, you will get that things in 50% discount amount. Okay. So laterwards we can talk about it. Otherwise, you can talk with the faculty members or in it, so that you will get more information about that courses.
All right. We'll go to other questions. Shivam has asked, are networking is required for cybersecurity? Shivam, networking is so in cybersecurity there are different domains, right? Even in offensive, let's say, there's network pen testing, there is web application pen testing. So of course, knowing about the network, having basic knowledge is very good. It's not required. So like ma'am said, I did not know this, but if you already tied up with EC Council, that's very good. If you take a CH course, then they have an appendix section, right, in which they teach concept basics of networking already for free. It's a self-teaching thing, but you have the course material out there, which is really nice, right? So you can figure out the different any and everything that you need to know about networking out there, right? Like the different layers that are there. All of that are taught. Are there any other questions right now? How can we have a good placement for an cybersecurity expert? Amir, that is something you have to find out yourself. There are, of course, online platforms, right? So, Indeed is in India today. Similarly, Indeed is in multiple countries. Right? You can go and search for jobs. So, let's say if you have a CH degree, you can go for CH certificate. You can go and search for CH-based jobs, right? And see the prerequisites. Right? Go for a starter job, and you'll be able to get yourself an interview. Make sure not to go for government organizations outside India, because being in security, they will require you to be a resident of that country. So you can go for private companies outside India. There is a link for a quiz shared for attendance. Please, if you all can do that, that'll be great.
It's wonderful session. We learned a lot from you, and
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for having me, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
students, please attempt the quiz.
Very excellent session, sir. Very nice.
Thank you, ma'am. Either if you all don't have any other questions, I'll take your leave then. If you do, it's your chance.
Yeah, Kanishka, just hand over the session, Kanishka.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
We are all going to have to change how we think about data protection. Thank you, Mr. Aditya Jain, sir, for your valuable time and presence. It was a pleasure learning and gaining knowledge from you. Special thanks to Mrs. Soumi Banerjee ma'am, Dr. Vanita Mane ma'am, Mrs. Anita Patil ma'am, and Dr. Gautam Borkar sir. Thank you, teachers, for your help and guidance. I would like to thank the principal of RIIT, Dr. Mukesh Patil sir, and HOD of IT department, Dr. Ashish Jadhav sir. Thank you, dear participants, for attending today's session. We hope you learned and enjoyed the event. Do not forget to attempt the quiz on our Instagram. We will meet again on 22nd of October for yet another day to know more about cybersecurity. Thank you everyone for your enthusiastic participation. For further updates about more such events, don't forget to follow RAIT ACM on social handles. Be safe, secure from cyber threats, and keep learning. Thank you.